Hello everyone. After having just finished Beyond Good and Evil, I wanted to come back and do a review on it, and just give my thoughts in general. So what is Beyond Good and Evil? Well, it's an action-adventure game made by Ubisoft, released in 2003. It was, strangely enough, a commercial failure, however, a critical success. It got really good reviews, people loved it, and has since become a bit of a classic. In it, you play as Jade, a reporter and martial artist who can kick some serious ass. The planet you're on, Hillys, is being sieged by the Doms, which are a bunch of nasty aliens. There's a group called the Alpha Section that are ostensibly protecting the people of Hillys from the Doms.
Alpha Sections, Patrol 21, all's clear. You may go up without fear.
But you discover a conspiracy involving them, and you have to use your reporting and your martial artist skills to reveal that conspiracy to the people. My overall impressions of the game? It's really good. Seriously, it's so damn good. Let me explain why. Let's delve into the specifics by breaking the game down into a couple parts. So the gameplay is really varied, but I think you can roughly break it down into these elements: stealth, fighting, puzzles, exploration, and minigames. So let's look at the first one, the stealth. The stealth system is pretty simple, but it feels really good and it's really well polished. The controls for your character during the stealth sections they're just nice. They're simple, they're nice. You stay crouched, stay out of sight. You can do a sort of stealth roll to roll into cover if you've been spotted and want to get out of their view, or just if you think you're about to be spotted, you can just quickly roll behind something, which is pretty cool. Most of what you end up doing during stealth sections is looking at the enemy guard patterns to see where they're walking and where they're looking, so you can avoid their sights and figure out exactly where you need to be at any moment to get through the section. However, there are some other options. You can also make distractions, because you have this little thing that can shoot discs. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's good for making distractions and pressing buttons and things like that. So you can shoot it at a wall, for example, behind a guard, and they'll look in that direction and go towards it. You can also use it to distract the guards in different ways, but I don't want to spoil that. So you have some options there. There's also a good amount of feedback from the enemies as to when you've been spotted. They have a green light that shoots out from their helmet when they're just unalerted. And if they spot you, but they're not quite aggroed to you, they're not coming towards you, they don't know you're there, but they think they see something. If that happens, then their little light turns purple. So it's super obvious. Plus, there's a sound that kind of plays, so it's super obvious when you've kind of been spotted and you need to quickly jump behind something, or run behind something. So good amount of feedback, pretty simple, feels good. Yeah, it just feels nice. Next, there's the fighting. And just like stealth, it feels really snappy and smooth. You can quickly dodge in any direction that you want, and your character automatically locks onto whatever target you happen to be facing when you go to attack, so you won't find yourself swinging at nothing in the air, for example. Now, you can probably get by with just mashing the attack button, but if you space your attacks out just right, you can do a special, more powerful attack, so it actually rewards careful control. There's a lot of combat variety, too. Sometimes it's as simple as just bashing an enemy until it's dead and there's nothing more to it, but other times you need to use your companion's special ability to launch an enemy into the air, and then hit that enemy while it's in the air into something like an electrical thing to disable it, or into a platform to make it come down and open up a new path. Sometimes enemies shoot lasers at you that you need to dodge, so dodging and timing your attacks can be really important. There's also boss fights that have their own unique attack patterns, so there's really a good amount of variety in combat. And next, there's the puzzles. They range from anything from moving lasers to hit the right spot, to pushing crates into the right position to get up somewhere. It could be something like finding codes in the environment, or even on items in your inventory sometimes. Sometimes you need to hit electrical boxes to disable them for a few seconds, and then do something quickly. And there's all sorts of other things too. So there's a really good variety here, with the puzzles as well, just like there is with the combat. And I feel like every puzzle, even though most of them are pretty small and pretty simple, they just feel really satisfying to solve. Next, there's exploration. Exploration is really rewarding in multiple ways. One thing you can do is find looters' hideouts, where you have to chase the looters down in this really cool chase sequence in your hovercraft, in their lair filled with traps and stuff like that, and at the end of it you end up getting their pearls, which you need to buy new equipment. You can also find permanent health upgrades, which are really important. Also, one really cool thing you can do is to take pictures of animals. So Jade is actually contracted to take pictures of all the different species of animals on Hillys. So if you take pictures of every new animal you find, you actually get paid for it. But it's not just the money and items that you get for doing that makes it worth it, though. I actually would have done it even without those things, because it was just so cool to see all these new creatures. Drifting in the water in your hovercraft and waiting for a whale to shoot up from the water so you can snap a picture of it is just really great. And that sort of thing actually resulted in some of my most fun experiences with the game. Next, there's the minigames. So one thing you can do is hovercraft races, which are a hell of a lot of fun. There's also hovercraft chases with the looters that I mentioned before. There's an air hockey sort of game that you can play for money, or for pearls too. There's even a little shell game you can play. So there's a bunch of mini games that you can do. They're all really simple, but they're fun to play and help kind of break up the experience and offer some nice variety. And that's one of the greatest things about the game, I think. There's such a variety to what you can do that nothing ever has time to get old. All of the different elements don't have a large amount of depth. They're relatively simple in terms of mechanics. But every part just feels smooth and polished and fun to play, and the variety keeps it from getting old. And I don't really see the lack of depth as a flaw, really, because it's an 8-hour game. With such an amount of variety in the gameplay over that 8-hour period, I don't think there's enough time to really have a large amount of depth in the gameplay, because I don't think the player would really have enough time to get used to it. So I'm perfectly fine with a relatively simple but varied gameplay. Alright, so that's most of the gameplay. Now let's talk about some other stuff and the overall feel of the game. One thing I definitely want to mention is that the music is freaking beautiful. Here, have a listen. I'm just totally in love with the soundtrack, it's so good. The art direction also is just wonderful. The art fidelity is obviously quite low, because of its age, but the art direction just still looks wonderful and vibrant even to this day. The story it's a simple one. It's a simple tale of good versus evil. Which is actually a little bit strange to me because the title is Beyond Good and Evil. I'm not really sure what the beyond part is about, but it really is just a simple tale of good versus evil. It's really straightforward. It's not very deep, to be honest, but it does the job, and it gives every character a clear motivation and direction in the story. As far as flaws go, the biggest ones would definitely be the interface, and especially the camera controls. The way that your camera behaves actually varies between sections. It controls differently in a hovercraft, which controls differently from how it is in a stealth section, which controls differently from how it is when you're just exploring around on foot, and so on. Often it just simply refused to look where I wanted it to. It makes the camera controls really unpredictable and annoying, and I often found myself just fighting with the camera. Also, the UI in everything from the main menu to the inventory is obviously made with a controller in mind, and this leads to the keyboard and mouse controls being very clumsy. Thankfully, you don't need to interact with the UI very much, so it's not that big of a deal. All of those issues are relatively minor compared to just how good everything else is. The whole game just feels charming and lovely to play, like being wrapped in a warm blanket. You can take off into the water and take pictures of whales. You can chase a looter down. You can go for a race. You can sneak past enemies and steal pearls from right under their noses. All done with a fantastic soundtrack in the background, and lovable characters in the foreground. It's just a really great game, and I would highly recommend it. If you'd like to grab it, you can get it from GOG and from Steam. There's also a remastered edition that sadly only came to consoles, which, since I haven't played it myself, I can't recommend it, but it's probably better than the standard edition that you can get on PC. I'm also running a widescreen patch, and I also had to make a few tweaks to the game to make it run properly, so I'll have links to everything I just talked about in the description. Simply put, Beyond Good and Evil is one of the best games I've ever played. It's that good.